So at this time, let's begin with our Secretary of State, Nelly Gorbea, who I believe is joining us. She can speak to us on the integrity of our elections and voting. Madam Secretary, welcome to the House Committee on Innovation, Internet, and Technology.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Chairwoman Ruggiero, and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. And especially as we kick off this new committee. Let me start, Madam Chair, by congratulating you, Speaker Shekarchi, and the House leadership team on creating a much-needed legislative space to address important cybersecurity and technology issues. You know, when I came into office in 2015, I knew that we would have a lot of technological catch-up to do at the Department of State. The fast pace of change in the digital world has been hard for government to keep up with. Making government work for people can only be done if we can make it easier for Rhode Islanders to connect with their government by modernizing how we deliver services. My office has taken this approach across all divisions. You know, we overhauled our lobbying statute from one based on outdated paper processes to one designed for the digital age. The law that we passed improves transparency and access to data that helps Rhode Islanders hold their government accountable. With the Administrative Procedures Act, reforms were enacted by the General Assembly that helped my office develop a new code of state regulations. The new application of the Administrative Procedures Act gives Rhode Islanders better access to their government, and it's built on secure cyber infrastructure. In fact, it's been recognized nationally and has served as a model for other states embarking on regulatory reform. Now, none of this could have happened without the support of the General Assembly. Many of our laws were written with paper processes and paper checks and balances in mind. You know, quite honestly, any serious modernization of government today requires a legislative rewrite. Digital modernization in government requires laws and regulations born with a digital mindset. Of course, the area of my office that has gotten the most national attention in terms of modernization security is elections. As Secretary of State, I am Rhode Island's chief state elections official. Over the past 6 years, I've made cybersecurity and modernization of our election systems a top priority. And I'm proud to say that thanks to your support, we have evolved our systems tremendously during this time. And Rhode Island serves as a leading example in election cybersecurity. As you know, elections in Rhode Island are a collaborative effort between my office, the Board of Elections, and local boards of canvassers in each of our communities. The nerve center of our elections in Rhode Island is our Central Voter Registration System, or CVRS. This is a database which houses the state's voter rolls, candidate lists, and basically helps run the election itself. In January 2017, the Department of Homeland Security designated election infrastructure as one of our country's critical infrastructure areas. This began a rapid ramp-up of cyber defenses and coordination on the state and federal level to better secure our election systems. By the end of that year, I, along with many other secretaries of state, obtained security clearance and started attending cybersecurity briefings. The Rhode Island Department of State had already begun to dramatically improve its security posture, so we actually went into this in a much better place than some of my colleagues. In my first year, I hired Greg Crenshaw, who's our department's information security architect. His job is to focus on strengthening our IT infrastructure. And Greg actually is here with me tonight virtually in case there's any detailed technical items that need clarification. So along with hiring the right people, we proceeded to retire legacy systems, which is a big issue in government and which I know Vijay Kumar is all too familiar with. We trained all of our employees. We developed new applications that allowed the state to retain the intellectual property it invested, and we hired in-house developers to maintain these applications. Going into 2020, my team anticipated cybersecurity being the #1 election issue that we would face. Running an election during a pandemic, however, had not been something that we had predicted. But the good news is that because we spent years putting in the work ahead of time, the cybersecurity of our systems was already in really strong shape. So we were ready to ensure that Rhode Islanders had a safe and secure voting experience during the pandemic, and also for the upcoming special election, which is coming up on March 2nd. The Department of State arrived at this position of strength by following three core cybersecurity principles. Number one, we know there's no finish line when it comes to cybersecurity. We continuously assess our systems, upgrade our hardware and software, and educate our people on what we call cyber hygiene. Number two, we build and strengthen partnerships with stakeholders and technical experts on the federal, state, and local levels. This is definitely a team sport. Number three, we have plans of action and redundancies in place for when something happens, because at some point it will. These three principles enable us to quickly identify and mitigate our risk to our systems. And I'd like to give you an in-depth look at some of these efforts that we've taken in these three areas, because I think it really shows sort of a case study for what's up ahead in government. First, we'll look at how we assess and evolve our systems at the Department of State. Modernizing Rhode Island's election equipment was one of my first actions as Secretary of State. Thanks again to the support of the General Assembly, I acquired new state-of-the-art voting machines in 2016, which use voter-marked paper ballots, the gold standard in election security. In fact, Rhode Island is one of only a few states in the country to combine paper ballots with post-election risk limiting audits, which verifies the accuracy of the election results. For the 2018 election cycle, we implemented electronic poll books. E-poll books streamline the voter check-in process and make real-time turnout data available to the public, adding transparency and trust to our elections. The Rhode Island National Guard and State Police Fusion Center conducted a full security assessment of the e-poll books before they were fully rolled out. Also, in 2018, we did also implement database monitoring, cyber event monitoring, and had a full risk assessment of our systems by the Department of Homeland Security. I also distributed over $100,000 in federal Help America Vote Act monies to all 39 cities and towns in Rhode Island so that they could use it for cybersecurity improvements ahead of the election. Now at this point, I want to thank our stellar congressional delegation for their support in helping us obtain these key dollars that have helped secure our elections. Again, it's a team sport. In 2019, I oversaw a complete rebuild of Rhode Island's central voter registration system, which is the backbone of our election process. Personally, I'm very fond of this project, having overseen the creation of CVRS as Deputy Secretary of State back in 2005, 2006. You know, it was a great project then, did a lot of good, but at 14 years of age, it had significant security concerns for this day and age. And so our new system, which was a complete rewrite, added several layers of redundancy and security, and it also meets best practices set by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We continue to have weekly scans of all our online systems by CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which was created at the Department of Homeland Security. And along with these hardware and software upgrades, we also launched a continuous system of cyber hygiene training for our staff, everyone. Every month, my staff is trained and tested, not just the election staff. Everyone is trained and tested so that they're up to date on the latest cyber threats. We also provide training and resources for election officials at the local level. For example, one of the most common ways a system is breached is through phishing emails. So we constantly test election officials to make sure they know how to spot these attacks, because any breach of their system at the local level could lead to a breach in our systems at the statewide level. So we do that, and then we also conduct phishing email campaigns with our staff. Everybody from, you know, the archives to business services, my office, all over. I actually get them myself. We conduct a phishing email campaign that helps us train and protects us, keeps us on our toes, so that we guard against phishing emails that might lead to a cyber intrusion of our network. Realizing that protecting our elections requires a team effort, I hosted cybersecurity summits for election officials in 2017 and 2019, which created valuable partnerships and helped inform state and local election officials of cybersecurity trends and threats in advance to the 2018 and 2020 elections. In fact, our 2019 summit at Salve Regina University had over 150 attendees, including the Department of Homeland Security, the Rhode Island State Police, the National Guard, the Board of Elections, and election staff from every community in the state. Many of these same groups have also participated in several tabletop exercises that simulate real-time attacks on our election systems. These exercises provide really invaluable experience and insight into how to respond when an attack happens. The Department of State is also a member of the Center for Internet Security's MS-ISAC and EI-ISAC. We do love acronyms in cybersecurity, so that stands for the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which works with all sorts of state and local governments, and the Elections Infrastructure Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which focuses specifically on the dangers and threats to the elections infrastructure. Now, I've also have the honor of serving on the executive committee of another committee, which is the EI, the Election Infrastructure Subsector Government Coordinating Council. The GCC, as we call it for short, is where government at the local, county, and state levels works with federal government and private sector vendors in the elections arena to ensure that the security of our elections is strong. And as I said before, you know, this is definitely a team sport, securing our elections. And I'm going through a lot of these things so that you get a sense of how much is happening as we speak to secure our elections. Now, I have to thank all of our partners for their collaboration with my office. Their work really is helping us ensure the integrity of not just the past elections, like the 2020 election, but elections going forward. This is the new normal. So thanks to the Rhode Island Board of Elections, our local boards of canvassers, the Rhode Island State Police, the Rhode Island National Guard, the Rhode Island Division of Information Technology, CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at the Department of Homeland Security, the Center for Internet Security, which staffs the EI-ISAC, Attorney General Peter Nerona, the FBI, and, of course, our wonderful congressional delegation. As I conclude, I want to mention legislation that I introduced last year and will introduce again this session to establish assessments, trainings, and communications protocols so that we can better protect the information technology systems in our elections and across our entire state. The legislation also looks to formalize cybersecurity practices in our state so that we can ensure more effective communication and training to protect against intrusions. Right now, we sort of have this kind of gentleman's agreement, and I think it really has come time for us to set up frameworks that can help secure and protect us. So if there's one takeaway that I want to impress upon you tonight, it's this. Rhode Island's cybersecurity requires an ongoing investment in our state workers and our infrastructure. Federal aid in the election sphere was welcome and needed over the past couple of election cycles. But true sustained cybersecurity in elections and across state government will require a budget line item. We must create structures in state government to continuously address cybersecurity. It makes no sense for 39 cities and towns to tackle this vital security issue on their own. As our state's chief state election official, I am able to go to the Department of Homeland Security for support in securing our elections. All of the states have that. We should empower our cities and towns to be able to come to the state in the same way. It can be a joint venture with the private sector. Clearly, we are just at the beginning of this important conversation. And so with that, I want to thank, again, Speaker Chikarchi, Chairwoman Ruggiero, and this committee for putting cybersecurity on Rhode Island's radar. But yes, all pun intended. By standing together, we have made our state a leader in defending our democracy through cybersecurity. I'm honored to play a role in that process, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and I look forward to answering any questions you have on the cybersecurity of our elections.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We appreciate you joining us tonight. Are there any questions from any of the members? I'm going to ask my colleagues who are at home at WebEx, just raise your hand so we know. I think it's commendable, Madam Secretary, the work that you're doing. I just have one quick question. What keeps you up at night?
We're at the very beginning of establishing a new structure of protecting our government. And we need to consistently invest in, like I said, our state workers and in our infrastructure. What keeps me up at night is that potential, weakest link of someone who clicks on that email without realizing it, because we haven't been able to get to them and train them and to raise that awareness.
Mm-hmm. And certainly one of the issues, too, with some ransomware that has happened in some of our cities and towns is something that the committee will look at. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight, Madam Secretary. We appreciate you coming before the committee.